And thus therewith, before we get on with the second episode of the night. And this is, so what has this all got to do with healthcare? You're talking about physics, spinners, mathematics, healthcare. What does it have to do with all of this? Well, basically, the idea came about whilst thinking about solving a healthcare problem, and it turns out that that is its application. And it just happens to be the case that I was thinking about it in the right way for that to come about. And what it has to do with healthcare is that quantum entanglement is basically a statement to say we mathematically know that this and this are related in a way that makes it certain, in the way that I was talking about in the spinners. And of course, again, that is something we don't tend to really think about. So it is not part of our lived experience to think in that way. And that's why these things feel a little bit odd and redundant and, oh my God, why am I even listening to this? And that's very understandable, because that creates tools that enables us to do important things. Like, for example, laser. Like, for example, a lot of, well, all of the computing reality that we are seeing today, and that is making your lived experience nicer, easier, faster, and more accessible today, is a byproduct of this quantum entanglement. And that is essentially the knowing how things are related to one another. That's what quantum entanglement means. And knowing how things work, how they are entangled and they are given meaning, is obviously incredibly important when it comes to trying to make things better. And that is why the more we know, and the more that we know how they are meant to entangle together, the more that we can do things well, the more precisely our calculations can be, and how more meaningful our search and inquiries can be. So quantum entangling healthcare data is basically the same as saying making it calculable, predictable, and making it possible for your doctor to give you the treatment and the advice that is going to work for you if you follow it. And that is quite a statement to go with, of course. But that is simply because we have so much data already. We have oceans of data. We have enormous amounts of information about everything and anything. We have far more than we need data of in order to know how things behave really. We just need to stack it up intelligently, and that is what the dot theory is. It is a way, a method to stack information layers together in such a way that you can then look at it if you turn and twist it in just the right ways, so that you see the meaning of it. And it's a little bit like these art installations where you have layers, and if you look at it wrong, you don't see anything, and as you merge the different perspectives together, you see it. And that is what a spinner does. It's invisible, 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 boom, and now it is visible. And that is the effect that we're trying to obtain with the modified spinner, which is to know exactly what the thing is that is going to provide our patient as a piece of advice, and as a series of pieces of advice, sequencing on one another, the thing that is going to help our patient the most efficiently, let's suppose, cost efficiently, time efficiently, and of course quality of life and survival following on from it. And the beauty of the system is that it, by virtue of how it processes information, it always becomes more and more accurate in its predictions. Every time that something happens, that then feeds back into a data feedback loop, and that then makes it possible to make ever more accurate predictions. Now, that is, of course, a mouthful, but what it really is talking about is a method, and this is what my paper is proposing, to make accurate, real-time, individualized healthcare prediction possible. And in the paper is written out completely, and essentially anybody that can understand its contents can go and set up the required healthcare systems to make this thing happen. Which is all I want, really. I'd like to do it myself, of course, because I've got some visions and ideas around how that could happen. But essentially, these are ideas that need to be promoted, and they need to be used as a means to improve how we do things. So in producing this piece of work, what I'm actually doing is saying, here you go, you now know how to do it better than we are doing today. So it's a mechanism to try to make a small contribution to the quality of life of my fellow man and women and everything else in between. So we have a reality here that we can compute and that we can understand in order to enable us to have a better quality understanding of life and thereby a better quality of life. In this process, we are then essentially going to be helping a lot of people. And that is ultimately the goal of this project. And that's what it has to do with healthcare, because as it so happens, it is enabling a logic of prediction of self-perception. And nowhere in the world do we have more data about how we perceive ourselves as we do descriptions, have descriptions of, as we do in the healthcare world. So that data is readily available today, right now, to assess the world as we experience it through our health. And that's a really important step forwards, but it also proves the premise of real world entanglement. It then produces what is known as a Bell's inequality violation. And although it's using historical data, so I don't know how that will sit with the community. This is kind of a fix. It's a trick in a sense, because we're not using the actual data that is describing the item in the right here, right now. We are using a juxtaposition of probabilities, and that is pulling the entanglement into the equation. And that is how the spinner does that, by adding a data layer, by adding a movement. I'm basically making the equation that is the spinner a little bit more complicated, slightly more refined, and in my opinion, slightly more accurate at predicting and describing reality. So we have something that just basically is born out of healthcare. Interestingly, when you look into some of the papers around the mathematics, one of the things that I noted was that there is an intention to this equation. And that's quite crucial, really, in understanding the dot theory as a mathematical concept, because it really is the equation of, or it's the thing that does things with things of progress. It is that object that takes information in such a way that it presents you with the right answer for what you're looking for. And again, that is such a strange notion, and you'd like to be tempted to call it an oracle, because essentially that is what it's doing. It is simply looking at what it already knows. Gnautes se auton, as they say in ancient Greece, know thyself. And so it was really about knowing the information that is available in order to project it forward and identify what was what's going to be the outcome. And these again is this very esoterical, very odd way of thinking about reality, but it is a valid way of reality that is not always necessary, and certainly isn't in the normal day-to-day, but it is a way of thinking, of creative thinking. I touch on the creativity and the thought-based processing that goes with the dot theory development in some of my chapters in the paperwork on the dot theory website. And it was definitely very, very challenging to feel and look at the different aspects of reality through these different lenses, and it can be very discombobulating, very almost nauseating sometimes, and hypnotic to be thinking in these different ways. So I absolutely respect some of the challenges that this theory presents, because it really asks you to think about things that are unusual topics to think about. And ultimately, what it wants to do is simply produce a real world solution that makes better healthcare solutions available to everyone at a very, very low cost, if any. So it's that is important. All the complexity is simply a necessary evil to draw attention to what this theory is, because to the uninformed listener that has dragged their collective asses this far through my ramblings, thank you again. What you're listening to is something that is um, just a very different way of looking at information and understanding reality. And it needs your support in order to be promoted and understood. And so it really needs this discussion to happen around why are we not doing this. And I would, again, as I will often do in my videos, call to my audience who looks at these things, if this ever becomes something that gets looked at, and hopefully understands that if you understand what I'm talking about here, and you realize that I'm talking about giving a solution, creating a solution that improves healthcare globally at an incredibly low cost, then I would like to think that, and you follow the logic of what I'm saying, because ultimately it's very superfluous and long-winded, but it means things. It means that there is a solution here that will reliably make things better for everyone, very, very cheaply too, by the way. So it also means other things. It means that certain problems that we had with the mathematics of physics aren't really a problem anymore, and that they have been solved in this process. And again, that deserves attention. There are a lot of people who look at gut theories and TOEs, or theories of everything, and this thing is it. It simply is, and it's a very strange experience for me to kind of discuss that, because I was just chatting with my wife very recently about this very same thing, the feeling and the oddity of realizing something that extraordinary, that solution means a lot, and it changes dramatically how we can make life better for each other. And this theory, and it is a theory, it is a gut, it is the dot theory is the very way, in my opinion, to do that. And so I'm looking to my audience to make noise about this somehow, to get this off the ground and heard. I know that the vast majority of people who will be watching or listening to this information will be people who are very dear and near me, and would be listening just out of sympathy, and maybe because they enjoy certain aspects of the narratives that I'm discussing here. But I do appreciate everything that you're all doing. But please understand that if you understand what I'm talking about here, and that you appreciate that doing something that great for your fellow man is a good idea, I would really appreciate your support in every which way you can think of, even if it's, routinely messaging about it, so that some people start looking at it, because I think it's worth your time. So again, discussing such a completely random and strange theory about things that have very little to do with, my everyday today reality, my experience of going to the supermarket, is of course very strange, but it gives us real world solutions to make things better in healthcare worldwide. And it also means that there has been a solution for a long-standing problem. The solution will have a lot of other implications, tremendous number of implications, and it will be a very interesting, reality shifting time for everyone, because I think being able to take more accurate, better responsibility of our own health and our own relationship with reality is going to be an enormous step forwards. And I know that this is going to be something that will invite that. So thank you again for your time and attention this evening. I'm looking forward to doing my next 2 episodes tomorrow or sometime thereafter at my leisure. And so therefore, peace out and love.